The Toronto Maple Leafs are in a lot of turmoil starting this season. Here, 20 games in, they're already under the microscope, whether they win or they lose. And even when they win, sometimes they're in controversy for things off the ice or things out of their control. But today, we're going to take a look at the Toronto Maple Leafs, the struggles that they're going through, some trade rumors, some possible positional changes in personnel. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and a subscribe. Let's take a look at the Toronto Maple Leafs. So, the Toronto Maple Leafs season has been awful to start. The Maple Leafs are not playing well here to start the season, and a lot of it is due to maybe some lack of motivation through the roster, maybe guys just not gelling that well, or maybe it's lack of motivation and drive from the coach that's not getting to the team. The Leafs are in trouble. Now, overall, the Leafs are in a pretty tough spot. They're 22 games into the season with a 9-9-4 record. So through 22 games, they have 9 wins on the year. So really not great for the Toronto Maple Leafs. They have 71 goals for this season, but unfortunately, they've given up 77 goals. So they're toward the top of the league in terms of goals scored, but they're also at the top of the league in goals against, and that's been an issue now for a couple of years since Kyle Dubas has come to Toronto that the Leafs have been dealing with. They have a -6 in differential at home. They are 6-3-4, so they're just under 500 at home in a very rabid city there in Toronto. They expect more wins at home, and they're even worse on the road. They're 3-6, so they've only won 3 of 9 games on the road to start the season. Not good enough. They've already went to 3 shootouts this season, losing 2 of those 3 shootouts. And in the last 10 games, they have a 3-5-2 record. Not good enough for Toronto. And to top it all off, they are on a 4-game losing streak. So the Toronto Maple Leaf struggles go up and down the lineup, offense, defense, goaltending, you name it. The issues are there for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, they obviously have some other issues that are out of their control. We've heard about Mitch Marner, who has been out with an injury. Trevor Moore is on the IR as of just recently. So the Maple Leafs have some issues, but you know what? Every team has injuries, and you see it throughout. You see Sidney Crosby out for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Mikko Rantanen out for Colorado. And those teams are still holding up and somewhat, in it and playing fairly well, quite honestly. Even with Colorado's struggles, they're still putting together wins here and there. Toronto is really a different story at this point in the season. And things have to change for the Leafs because this can't last. Pierre Engvall just got called up by the Leafs, so they're looking for some sort of change there. I wonder if there's something in the works with that. But overall, the Leafs, they just have not been able to get really anything going in terms of their defense. The defensive philosophy they have, the amount of goals they've given up in the first minute of these games, in the first period, and that's why their road record, I think, is as awful as it is. The worst thing you could do going into a game on the road, you give up that first goal and all the momentum goes to the home team. The fans are into it, and you've automatically given yourself a disadvantage for the rest of the game. And when you're a team that gives up as many goals as you do, you give up the first goal, and the rest of the game moving forward, you're bound to give up at least 1 or 2 more. You're not going to find much success there. Austin Matthews leads the team with 27 points this season. You have Mitch Marner, who has been out of the lineup now for a week. He has 18 points on the season. William Nylander has 17. Morgan Riley has 17 as well. And John Tavares rounds out the top 5 with 14. So the Leafs definitely have some issues on this roster. And I don't really know how it changed. I mean, you look at the time on ice for this team. Morgan Riley leads the team with 25 minutes per game on the ice. Cody Ceci is second in that with 22. Toronto, nothing against Cody Ceci. I think he's been a fine defenseman. But for a guy that was kind of exiled from Ottawa, coming over to Toronto, I mean, he's been pretty good. That's a lot for a guy like Ceci. Jake Muzzin just a shade under 22 minutes at 21:57. Tyson Barrie with 21 minutes as well. And Austin Matthews, the lone forward in that top five with 19 minutes played per season so far this season. Face-off win percentage as well. Austin Matthews with a 58% winning, so that's solid. John Tavares with a 54%, and Alex Kerfoot with a 47%. So the Leafs, again, it's like it just goes through the roster. The goaltending, goals against average, Freddie Anderson has a 2.74. That's not great. Could be a lot worse, but it's not great. Michael Hutchinson with a 4.44 goals against per game. That's 4 goals a game from Michael Hutchinson so far this season. Save percentage, Freddie Anderson is still above 900 at a 912 save percentage. Michael Hutchinson has an 879 save percentage, and the limited time we've seen from Casimir Kaskisuo, he has an 842. So, it's bad when Freddie Anderson, looking at the wins that the Leafs have had, all 9 of their wins this season have been at the back of Freddie Anderson. Neither Michael Hutchinson or Kaskisuo have been rewarded with a win this season. And the Leafs don't have any shutouts this season. That's another thing for the goaltenders, but at this point it doesn't even matter. It's the wins that matter, and the Leafs have not found a way to do that. Kyle Dubas took a lot of flack for doing things the way he did, getting rid of bigger guys like Matt Martin, Leo Komarov, Nazem Kadri, even to a degree. He got rid of all those guys, and now this team just seems, you could say that they don't have guys that work hard. You obviously see what happened with Matt Calvert over the weekend, and that rubs off on the team. You see guys blocking shots, diving, giving out everything they have, and they feel like, he's doing that, I'm going to give it back and return the favor. And that's part of the culture of a team. And I think at this point, the Leafs don't really seem to have that. I think Jake Muzzin is a solid, blue-collar defenseman. Tyson Barrie has been in his own right throughout his time in Colorado. So now it leads into the question, well, why aren't they doing that now? Maybe Toronto has more guys than we think we give them credit for that are a little bit, giving agitation and being rough around the edges and difficult to play against. But then they come to Toronto and don't have that same success. It makes you wonder, is it the defenseman is it the personnel that they have on the ice, or is it possibly the personnel behind the bench? We know they just replaced their power play coach, TJ Hillard, I believe it is. He ended up going to the Islanders, and the Islanders have a pretty solid power play. Definitely better than it was last year. Toronto got rid of him. He went to the Islanders, obviously under the umbrella of Lou Lamoriello. That makes sense. But their power play has been awful to start the year. They did what again, it's easy to compare to the Islanders. I watch them a lot, but they do the thing where, you have the guys all come up to the blue line on the power play. So you have the defensive team up against the blue line. Your team is up against the blue line, and you have one guy that takes a drop pass at center ice, usually Morgan Riley or Mitch Marner, it seems to be recently for the Leafs. And it's so predictable. You know what happens every time. The Islanders did it last year. It was either Josh Bailey or Matt Barzal or Nick Leddy taking the puck up every single time from that, dropping the puck in, and it doesn't work because you have 4 defensive players basically on the blue line for the defense, 4 of your own offensive players basically at the blue line, and then somehow there's supposed to be room for Marner or Riley to sneak through that, get the puck down deep, and win a puck battle, which the Leafs have been, really notorious recently for not being able to do, is win the puck battle. So they basically do all this weird stuff at the blue line, so their execution in between the zones is awful. They get it down, if they're lucky, if they can even get it through, and then the defensive team just shoots it back into the Leafs zone. So there's definitely some issues there on the power play. The penalty kill as well has not been too great. Obviously, you could compare because you could say they do have Mitch Marner out of the lineup, who is a penalty killer for this Leafs team, but there are other guys that can step up as well. And Zach Hyman was out as well. So those are 2 pretty big penalty killers for the Leafs that were lost. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt there, but still, there always has to be that next man up mentality. There's plenty of teams you look around the league when Pittsburgh had all those injuries to start the season and the hot run they went on, the New York Islanders run that they were just on. Half their bottom six was out, and a bunch of guys from the American Hockey League came up and were playing well. That's what teams around the league are doing nowadays, and the Leafs are paying their big guys up front, but the lesser guys, look at one of the guys they got over the summer, Jason Spezza. Where's he been? They're not giving Nick Patan. He was on waivers. He's in the American League. So these are all guys that, and now this comes back to the coaching. Is it Mike Babcock just not give, it's not what Mike Babcock wants, so get rid of him. Or is it that guys just, it's the culture of the team and it's part of, Dubas's person, at the end of the day, Dubas brings in these guys. Mike Babcock only has so much that he can do. I think it's a combination of both of them. And taking a look at whether they should fire Mike Babcock or not, it really doesn't make sense for Kyle Dubas. Obviously, Sheldon Keefe, I think, is going to end up being the head coach by this time next year. I think it will be Sheldon Keefe because I don't see, even if Mike Babcock gets through the rest of the season with this Leafs team, if they don't make it past the first round against Boston or Tampa, they're gonna make changes. So I don't see that really being an issue at this point. I think Mike Babcock will be gone sooner or later. There's obviously been some feelings hurt between Dubas and Mike Babcock, and at the end of the day, Kyle Dubas makes the decisions. And but I don't think, I think Dubas is going to wait as long as he can because he knows Mike Babcock right now is getting a lot of the blame, and Mike Babcock, right, possibly, more than likely, definitely deserves some of the blame. You get the credit when your team is doing well as a coach, and you also take the blame when they're not. I think right now Dubas, it would almost be smart as a, maybe looking in his own interest for Kyle Dubas, because you get rid of Mike Babcock and you have Sheldon Keefe, and things don't change. Well, then who do you blame next? It's not the coach. You really can't do much about the players at this point. It's on you, Kyle. So that's what we have in terms of the Maple Leafs at this point. Will things get better? I don't know. Possibly some changes. There was a rumor the other day, Tyson Barrie, obviously things are not working well between him and the Maple Leafs right now. The possibility of him signing an extension almost seems laughable at this point in the season. Everybody's been saying how he hasn't been used to his full potential here with the Leafs. And why would he want to re-sign with the Leafs in that situation? The Leafs have given up a lot of prospects and draft picks to acquire guys like Tyson Barrie, Jake Muzzin. They've lost Kylie Rosen, a couple first-round picks. They traded out, contracts and draft picks just to get cap space to bring these guys in, and they're not finding success. So, now people are going to go back and forth. Where's the blame? Is it Dubas' fault for getting John Tavares? Is it Dubas' fault for how he handled Mitch Marner and Alexander Nylander? The list goes on and on. You could point the finger at everybody, and while everybody's pointing the finger, the Leafs are on a 4-game losing streak. So at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. Inevitably, I think by the end of the year, you have to consider if this keeps going, Tyson Barrie will likely be gone as a rental piece, which is a shame because the Leafs gave up a lot for Tyson Barrie in the hopes that either they could win a cup and it doesn't matter whether he leaves, or at least get maximum value back for him, which they absolutely would not get for him right now. William Nylander, I think, he's been a pretty solid player. He's one of the top, point producers on this team, but that's one of the guys you have value, and he's at a lower cap hit than some of these other guys like Marner, Matthews, and Tavares. And I don't see any of those three moving at this point. And you know what? Maybe Nylander doesn't move because we heard not too long ago Dubas said we'll never trade you or something like that to one of those guys. So now you give them that kind of comfort. Maybe it doesn't they're not as motivated as they would be maybe in another city. So let me know what you guys think. The goaltending's been an issue as well. There's been rumors, links between the Penguins and the Leafs, possibly Tristan Jarry going over to Toronto. Obviously, I just mentioned the stats. The stats have been awful for the Leafs in net, but even with Freddie Anderson, who's been pretty solid through this stretch. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and a subscribe. Thank you for watching, and let me, comment down below. What do you think of the Maple Leafs? What is the blame, and what would you do as an armchair GM? Thank you for watching, and have a great day.